Ineffective Listening by Kristen McInnis and Benoit. Listening is one of the most important parts of communication, since it is also the most frequent form of communication. Unfortunately, most people are incapable of completing this simple task. So as you ponder and smile as to who this may be in your life, let us supply you with some aspects of listening. Listening is a process that includes attending, perceiving, interpreting, assessing, and responding. 45 to 55% of communication involves or is itself listening. Listed here are some various types of poor listening. We will explain each of them into further detail and provide examples later on. There are 7 types that we encounter most commonly. These are sway-to listening, stage hogging, selective listening, insulative listening, defensive listening, ambushing, and lastly, insensitive listening. With so many types of ineffective listening, one might think it would almost be no different than talking to the hand. Sway-to listening is defined as imitation of true listening in which the receiver's mind is elsewhere. Imitation of the real thing, an act to put a fool on the speaker. As I'm sure most couples can relate to this, it is simply pretending to listen, acknowledging that they are hearing the person speaking, but unable to contribute or repeat any of the conversation. How many times have you been in a conversation with another individual who seemed to be only interested in themselves? This is actually a type of listening style for some people. And for all of those people who are like this, no, this is not an excuse to continue what you are doing. Stage hogging, simply put, is a listening style in which the receiver is more concerned with making a point rather than understanding the speaker, attempting to turn the topic of conversation to themselves instead of showing interest in the other person or people. 2 main types of stage hogging are shift response and interruptions. A listening style in which receivers respond only to the messages that interest them, while rejecting everything else, is known as selective listening. Just like on a date, people tend to ask the basic questions in the first bit of the conversation to see if the interest or chemistry is there. If the other person gets off topic, talking about something unrelated, the chances of you remembering that part of the conversation are minimal because it wasn't what you were wanting to hear. Most of the time my mom says that my dad and I have selective listening because if she asks us to complete chores around the house, only simple ones get done or the ones that immediately affect us. The image in this situation explains the gist of the topic perfectly. Insulated listening is a style in which the receiver ignores desirable information. It is the opposite of selective listening, whereas the listener is avoiding specific information, failing to hear or acknowledge issues that are not of interest to discuss. A response style in which the receiver perceives a speaker's comments as an attack, whereas the case may be the exact opposite, is defensive listening. This case may be an aftermath of any other type of ineffective listening and is frequently seen throughout all types of communication. Yes, just like that text message you sent last night, that was only meant to be a joke, but now you're single and left wondering why she got upset over such a little thing. Another style of listening is ambushing. This style is when the receiver listens carefully in order to gather information to use in an attack on the speaker. In other words, simply remembering the conversation to use it against that individual rather than listening to relate, receive any emotion or understanding. Just like in legal cases, with lawyers or attorneys, when all the information has been gathered, the words an individual may have used earlier can be turned against them to win sides in a case. Lastly, we have insensitive listening. Failure to recognize the thoughts or feelings that are not directly expressed by the speaker, instead accepting the speaker's words at face value. To put this in basic terms, think of going to a psychiatrist and only having them respond to what you already know, or simply having them repeat back what you have said to them, rather than breaking down and explaining the feelings you're telling him. This wouldn't get you very far now, would it? Hopefully you took to heart this presentation and may have actually listened and learned how to listen in the future, not only to better yourself, but also to keep you out of the doghouse.